Hello everyone, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you enjoy deep dive stories told with care and context, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Today we're unpacking a digital drama that started with a single, cryptic request and spiraled into one of the week's most discussed talking points. Barış Baktas, a power user of social media with a devoted following, reached out publicly to Yagmar Yakul. Minutes later, the internet noticed what looked like subtle signals from his spouse, Gülüm Baktas. Was it a misunderstanding, a publicity tease, or the start of a bigger storyline? We'll break down the timeline, the fan theories, and the professional stakes, while keeping a clear line between speculation and verified facts. Let's set the scene. The Baktas household has long been a shorthand for polish and momentum. A couple that knows how to navigate cameras, campaigns, premieres, and the constant pressure to stay relevant without feeling disposable. Barış Baktas, in particular, understands the choreography of visibility. He posts with intention, curates his comments, and leaves just enough mystery to keep algorithms guessing. That is why a single message from him can do what a dozen tabloid headlines can't: turn the entire conversation in a new direction in the space of an afternoon. According to the earliest screenshots circulating among fan accounts, the inciting moment was deceptively small. On his Instagram story, set against a neutral background with no branding, Barış posted an unusual line addressed to a specific person: Yagmar, can you help me with that thing we discussed? There were no emojis, no location tag, no hashtag to anchor context. He didn't link to a project or repost a partner brand. The wording felt both casual and loaded. Like the second half of a conversation accidentally dropped into the first half of the internet. Within minutes, curious followers tapped back through his previous stories. Nothing. Then they checked what came next. Still nothing. The message stood alone, spotlighted by absence. Who is Yagmar Yakul in this story? To some, a fresh name in their feed, someone not previously tied to the Baktas orbit. To others, a rising figure with work that's earned attention without chasing it. That gap in audience familiarity mattered because it became the spark for 100 interpretations. Was this a creative collaboration? A charity initiative? A brand consultation? A cameo in a video? Or something more personal dressed up as work speak? The phrasing, that thing we discussed, hinted at prior contact, yet revealed none of it. And in the attention economy, a mystery is a match near dry kindling. Then came the second beat in the timeline, the one that ignited wider speculation: quiet activity on Gülüm Baktas' Instagram. It wasn't a dramatic post or a confrontational caption. It was smaller and therefore, paradoxically, louder. Observers noticed that a story featuring a moody, monochrome skyline went up not long after Barış's message. The song clip layered over it carried lyrics about distance and clarity. A few hours later, another story appeared, this time a close-up of a teacup on a windowsill with a simple line: some days call for silence. Was it a coincidence? A mood board? Or a carefully coded message? No one could say for sure. But the proximity of those posts to Barış's request to Yagmar amplified interest at jet speed. From there, the ecosystem of commentary took over. Fan accounts collated timestamps, overlaying screenshots like detectives mapping a case. Threads multiplied, each proposing a different, definitive reading of the same ambiguous actions. Some argued for a straightforward explanation: Barış and Yagmar were arranging logistics for a work project, and Gülüm's posts were unrelated reflections on a busy week. Others leaned into narrative: perhaps new partners were joining a production, perhaps a cameo was being teased, perhaps the music on Gülüm's stories was a delicate pushback against the public conflating timelines. The lack of official statements made every angle feel both plausible and fragile. Here's what we can say without guessing. First, public figures often use social platforms as Swiss Army knives: part press release, part diary, part performance. Messages are rarely random. Second, ambiguity is not always an accident. Sometimes it's the most efficient way to test audience appetite. Third, speculation has human consequences. When a spouse's quiet posts get framed as commentary on a partner's public message, the risk of misreading is high. Which is why responsible coverage treats the gap between what's known and what's assumed as sacred ground. Still, beyond the caution, there is a legitimate industry story here. If Barış was signaling a professional ask to Yagmar, what kind of collaboration would fit their profiles? One informed guest points to the rising value of cross-platform micro-productions, short-form series that live partly on social, partly in streaming anthologies, partly as live activations. In that model, talent is not just cast, they are co-architects of tone. A single story tag, a "can you help me with that thing," can be a breadcrumb toward a reveal timed for maximum reach. Another possibility is the charity route. Several high-visibility campaigns in recent years have used personal networks rather than corporate partnerships to move quickly and avoid bureaucracy. If a cause needed experienced hands and an immediate signal boost, a public ping could galvanize volunteers without tipping the entire plan. Where, then, does Gumbas' perceived reaction sit in this? It is equally plausible that her stories were simply about her day. It is also possible that she, like many spouses of public figures, chose to recenter the frame, to remind people that quiet is a stance, that not every headline deserves a response, and that the life you live offline should not be forced into the captions drafted by strangers. There is a skill to this kind of communication, how to hold space without inviting intrusion, and Gumbas' light touch suggested someone practiced at it. Now, let's talk about the cycle of attention, because it explains why a few hours of posts became several days of discourse. The pattern goes like this: a catalyst appears, the first wave of speculation rushes in, media outlets summarize the chatter, think pieces examine the metastory, privacy, parasociality, the meaning of a spouse's silence. Finally, the original subjects either clarify, pivot the narrative to the work, or simply wait out the noise. Each choice carries a cost. Clarify, and you feed the appetite for more details. Pivot, and critics call it evasive. Wait, and the narrative calcifies without you. The right answer depends on the project's timeline, the household's tolerance for chaos, and the difference between what's private and what's merely undisclosed. It is also worth examining the visual rhetoric of that first message. No logo. No campaign colors. No call to swipe. The choice to remove the scaffolding of a marketing push made the 8 words feel intimate. Yet intimacy, when performed in public, always has a dual audience, the addressee and the observers. Did Barış want to ensure the request reached Yagmar quickly? Did he want to anchor the future reveal to a specific, dateable moment? Or did he simply underestimate how thoroughly audiences read tone when context is scarce? Any of those could be true. More than one might be. What about the professional calculus among the 3 names at the heart of this? For Barış, the upside of a controlled mystery is obvious: energy, engagement, and leverage when announcing a project. The risk is misinterpretation that distracts from the work. For Yagmar, being named by a larger account can be rocket fuel, but only if the narrative remains respectful. For Gülüm, the work is different. It's about boundaries, how to live in the storm without becoming the story, how to model steadiness for an audience that loves plot twists, and how to remind everyone that dignity scales better than drama. As followers debated, a quieter current ran beneath the surface, a conversation about how we read digital signals. Does the timing of a story equal endorsement? Does a song lyric stand in for a statement? Does a spouse owe strangers an explanation when the public reads meaning into a morning cup of tea? The honest answer is that the internet rewards certainty, and life resists it. Which is why the most useful lens here isn't scandal, it's literacy. The better we get at reading platforms, the kinder we can be to the people living on them. So where does the story go from here? Expect one of 3 moves. 1. A soft reveal clarifies the nature of the favor, a creative collaboration featuring both Barış and Yagmar, framed as a celebration of craft and community. 2. The request turns out to be logistical, the internet overread the tea leaves, and everyone moves on with a shared reminder that not every ping is a plot. 3. The parties choose to say nothing, allowing the attention to cycle out on its own while they keep the focus on deliverables. In all scenarios, the wise path is the same: respect that a household is not a hashtag, and that the calmest person in the room often knows more than the loudest. Before we close, a note to the community: curiosity is natural, harassment is not. If you find yourself drafting a theory that requires invading someone's messages or transforming a neutral post into an accusation, pause. Ask whether your interest is anchored in the work these people do or in a storyline you wish they would live for your entertainment. Public figures owe their audience good work. They do not owe them their private text threads. Now it's your turn. What do you think the favor might be? A creative cameo? A short-form project launching soon? A fast-turn charity drive? And how should public figures signal boundaries when a simple story triggers 1,000 conclusions? Share your thoughts below. We read your comments, and we value nuance as much as enthusiasm. If you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, like this video, and consider clicking the join button for early access to breakdowns when official announcements drop. Until then, remember, sometimes the best way to understand a story is to watch what people choose not to say, and how gracefully they choose not to say it. Thank you for watching. Take care, and see you in the next video.